Hello, my name is Michelle, and welcome to the WorkMan application. WorkMan is a Windows 10 desktop application that allows for the simple creation, maintenance, and tracking of workflows. Hopefully by this video, you've already started using the tool and have an understanding of its many features. If not, I recommend watching some of our earlier videos. In today's video, we're going to focus on some real-world applications of WorkMan and how it can be used to enhance common processes used in everyday business. Specifically, we're going to look at two different workflows, a sprint plan and a software request form. As you can see from these high-level flows on the slide, there are many missing avenues. Take the sprint plan, for example. What if our testing fails? We're going to need to go back to the plan phase and so on. WorkMan, of course, makes those flow lines easy to create and understand. So let's sign in and take a look. All right, here I am signed in to WorkMan, and I'll select the Sprint Plan workflow, the Edit Workflow button, and then here we are. So what we have here is a typical sprint plan that may be used by teams who are working under an Agile project methodology. Each new piece of development can be added as a work item. And as we can see in our first step, we focus on documenting the requirements. And in this step, we either complete those requirements, we have this documented action, or we say that it needs some clarification, we return it to this step, or perhaps it's a low priority item and we just move it to our backlog, as you can see over here. And in a practical sense, this backlog would be full of many different work items and really kind of a place to store really the beginning to the end of our application of our work. And as each thing becomes more relevant, we just simply add it to the sprint and get back to this requirements step. Right, and then once we have our requirements documented, we move on to this development step, which is pretty straightforward. We either complete our development or we identify some issues. Once development is complete, in this example, we have our developers unit testing. And this is an example of a special user. So here we've used the special state user, and we've selected the state develop. So what's going on here is whoever made the action in the develop state, once it gets to unit testing, that same person is going to need to complete that work item. So quite simply, if you've developed if you've done the development, you also have to do the unit testing in this example. All right, and once that passed, we deploy our new code to the testing environment, which is kind of a common practice for those who are developing new applications. If that's successful, we move on to system testing. If it passes, we kind of have this client demo step, which is, again, it's an example, but it's definitely something that you could see in the real world situation. You kind of have this opportunity to make sure that the client approves of what you're doing. And if it is approved, we can go to production. However, if updates are needed, it goes all the way back to that requirement state just to make sure that everything's documented. And hopefully we can go through the process a little more quickly and get that final approval from the client to finally kind of complete that work item, to complete those sprint tasks. All right, so now that we kind of understand the flow, we can see it in action here. And I'll go ahead and select the play button, make sure that it's published. All right, and I'll kind of come back and initiate this workflow. All right, so to start off, we might just have a very simple title, something like search box. And as you can see from the bolded font, this is a required field. We might also have some information on the priority. This is another required field. So in this particular example, we can't really start the workflow unless we have a simple title to kind of understand the work item and the relative priority that it has. So in this case, we'll go ahead and say that it has a medium priority. All right, so we'll go ahead and start the workflow. And for testing purposes, I've only really used myself here, so should go ahead and return to my inbox once it's done. And here it is now in the requirements step. All right, and so in this case, we might really be trying to use that Agile methodology. So we'll put in a user story. I'll go ahead and use this as an example. As a general user for this application, I want to be able to find information quickly so that I can utilize the application for a business need. Simple, just an example, but something that definitely can be used for small businesses and even larger ones working on a specific project. To continue with our example, I'll go ahead and add in some acceptance criteria. We want this search box to be available throughout the application in a single location. It needs to allow for 600 characters and needs to filter the page as a user enters a search term. So we can kind of do this on-click searching, so we don't need to select enter or a search icon or anything like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and move this on and say that this is documented. All right, so now we're in the developed state, and this is where you might add in some progress notes, something like coded with jQuery, perhaps utilizes custom search function in some kind of JavaScript file, and keep that information here with the work item. Right. So as we spoke about earlier, and as you notice, I'm the only one really assigned to these tasks right now, but because we used a special user, we definitely know that once I select this action, that it's complete, that it will come back to me because we've used that dynamic user type in the next step, which is unit testing. All right, here we are in the unit testing phase. This is where I might add in a note, tested with search criteria XYZ or ABC and XYZ results returned as expected. Just some progress notes that you would want to keep with this work item and kind of just keep everything together. All right, so we'll go ahead and move this to, we'll say that this passed testing. Okay, so now we're in the deploy to test phase. And this is where I might say something like, it integrated in the test environment successfully. We didn't see any issues. I'll add this to our progress notes. And now we're here in the system testing, and this might be where I might identify some issues. Maybe the search box actually isn't available throughout the whole system. So I'll say, I'll add to the progress notes that we find a defect. The search box is only on the home page, and our action will be that it did fail in this case. And since we marked the system test as a fail, we can see that the work item is back here in development. And when we go ahead and take a look at it, we see that progress note that we just entered in about the defect. So the reason I use this sprint plan as a real world example for the video is that a lot of teams these days are using Agile and are using these steps, and it's a great way to utilize WorkMan. And you can really get to all the different flow lines and different paths that these pieces of development might go through when being added to an application. And it's really a great way to keep yourself organized and keep these work items organized in a place that everyone on the team can see their progress and see what's been done to them as they go through the different steps. And finally, just as a side note, you can use the file cabinet to see where things are in your workflow, and when they do finally make it to the end, you can see all the different development items that have been completed in the life of your workflow when creating a new application or doing other things in this sprint plan scenario. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to the other workflow I wanted to talk about, the software request form. So I'll go ahead and select this software approval workflow here, select edit workflow, and here we are. Often employees for a particular business will require some specific software in order to meet objectives and perform work. And in some cases, getting the software can be a simple process, but often it requires some approval before the products can be acquired and installed. So looking at our workflow, we start off, we initiate the workflow by submitting it to the approver, filling out the form, and getting to the supervisor to see if it's going to be approved or if revisions are required. Now, if revisions are required, the work item goes back to the workflow initiator. We've used that special user here, and they can resubmit their software request form until hopefully the supervisor will finally approve it. Once approved, in this example, we have a help desk kind of entity here, and they really perform two steps in this example. First, they see if there's a license available within the company for the software, and if it's not, they need to purchase that license. If it is available, they go ahead and assign a specific admin user to install the software. And here again, we're using another special user. We're using that dynamic user type so that the assigned admin, that person the help desk assigned, is the person who it must install the software. All right, so now that we've taken a look through this workflow, let's go ahead and see it in action. I'll press play here. Okay, so I'll initiate a new instance. In this case, perhaps we need Visual Studio's 2012, and the business need is that maybe we already have 2013, but this is required so that I can create applications that are run in the client environment, which perhaps is an older environment in this example. So we'll go ahead and start our workflow. And here it is now in the supervisor approval step. All right, so we'll go ahead and be a nice supervisor, select yes here in this radio button field and say that it has been approved. Now that it's been approved, we're onto our help desk step. And I can go ahead and assign that admin, and we'll just kind of assume here that the license is available. And I'll go ahead and search for my own account, put in my name, and here it comes. And here we go. Our assigned admin is going to be myself, and we'll move on to our next step, saying that the admin has been assigned. And finally, just to finish it out, we'll go ahead and say that the install was successful, and just put the progress note, no issues with install. And I'll select submit. And with that, my inbox is empty. And we can kind of come back here. Our work item has made it through the entire workflow. And this is just really a great real life example of how you can use WorkMan. You can use it to track these approval requests, see if they have been approved, and make sure that if there is any sort of division of employee responsibilities, that you can ensure that those personnel are kind of filling that help desk role or that admin role when installing the software that is requested. All right, so to just recap the video, we've gone through two separate real-life examples, the software approval workflow, and then, of course, our sprint plan workflow, which is a little bit longer here, but they were both examples of how you can use WorkMan in the real world. All right, well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the WorkMan application.